The house was in significant disarray.
Do you remember the master bedroom?
The master bedroom was upstairs, again in significant disarray. I observed that the mattress was full. It was a larger mattress that was shredded. It appeared as though a knife had been put in the mattress and pulled down, and many slices were taken. Repeatedly, yes.
So destroyed.
Destroyed, unusable ever again.
So this is consistent. What you saw is consistent with this interview of what he said he was going to do.
Yes.
Now, at the end of this interview, why did the interview finally
The interview ended when he requested an attorney, so the interview ended thereafter.
Was that the last interview that he gave without an attorney, to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, yes.
And just for a reference, I'm back to page 12 of the chronological. Physicians and staff at Fulton County Health Center, or they talked to?
Yeah, the physicians and staff were helpful while they were still triaging and trying to, they knew what we were doing. They were trying to help us locate children. They provided statements. They told us what he had told them.
Okay.
And there are differing versions, nothing that we could act upon.
But some of the stuff that he was telling them had to do with how he was going to commit suicide. Is that right?
Yes.
And that's important because when you're treating someone, it's important to know why you're treating someone, right?
Yes.
What did you learn from those stories? Were they all similar?
No, they're disorganized. There's no consistency to the stories that he is providing medical staff. There's nothing that we could do that we could use to help locate these children.
So fair to say the one thing you did learn is that John Skelton is a liar.
That was clear.
Now, he was eventually transferred from Fulton County to a crisis center.
Yes.
And that would be, and he also was admitted to St. Vincent's Hospital, right?
Yes.
And did you try to speak to their staff?
Yes, we were unable to gain any information from that staff.
In
from their
fact,
staff.
they were unwilling to be interviewed.
Correct.
Now, further, there were search warrants done. Let's talk about the search warrant of the Skelton's residence. I know we don't have to go in, if you've already talked about it, don't go into complete detail, but that search warrant, you were actually in the house, so you saw all this stuff. And there were, we talked about the noose. And where was Skelton's vehicle?
It was parked next to his house.
So when you get there, the van that John Skelton drove was at the house.
Yes.
What was inside of it?
Nothing of any significance.
Except for the children's booster seats in it.
The booster seats were in the van.
So you're a law enforcement officer in Michigan. Children of a certain age, are they required to be in a booster seat?
Yes.
If you were going to turn your children over to someone to drive them, would you provide them a booster seat?
Yes.
Where were the booster seats?
In the back seat, in the van.
So winter coats are at Aunt's house, toothbrushes are at Aunt's house. Kids are only in PJs somewhere, according to his statements. And the booster seats to transport the children are still inside the van.
Yes, and their asthma medicine and nebulizer were still in the house.
So the children took asthma medication,
Yes.
and during this search you found,
It was located in the house. Yes.
what's a nebulizer?
I believe it helps clear the lungs out during leading up to an asthma attack.
And so all that stuff was still in the house.
Yes.
So if by chance any of this story could have been true, obviously medicine would have been taken with the children,
Yes.
you would suppose. Now, as part of these search warrants, there were also more internet history. I think we've already talked about the potassium cyanide, prussic acid, and rat poisoning, but that was all discovered again through search warrants, correct?
Correct.
There was also a search warrant for the Skelton MySpace. Familiar with that? Holmes does it. And also, I'm at the bottom of page 4.
Yeah, there was a large, the search warrants were expansive.
But that is where we discovered, that all of the accounts had been created for the same IP address.
Yes.
And that was consistent with Congress Street in Morenci, Michigan.
Yes.
So I'm going to move you forward to November 26th, around midnight, on page 16. And there was a time where Pastor Galloway drove to the Fulton officer and spoke directly with John Skelton. Familiar with that?
I do. I am.
And what happened?
During the course, Pastor Galloway would have contact with John Skelton many times, and she provided that information to us. At approximately 9 o'clock, John Skelton told Galloway that Joanne had picked up the boys on Friday, November 26th, between 10 and 11 a.m. In the morning. He believed Joanne's last name was Taylor, and that Joanne had visited his home previously. And that the next day she had shown up between 10 and 11 and picked the boys up. That's what he told Galloway. Later on, at about midnight, when she had contact with John again, he was pretty upset and told Pastor Galloway that I miss them so much. And Pastor Galloway asked, where are they? He said, they're home. They're at home. She pressed, and that she spoke to John Skelton again and said he told her on the 27th that nobody believes me. They think I made up Joanne, that she's in my head. Seeking for clarification when Joanne picked the boys up, Galloway asked, so the boys didn't go with Joanne in the morning, Friday. Skelton told her that the boys went with Joanne Thursday night.
So that would have been Thanksgiving night.
Yes.
Okay.
Galloway asked directly where he took the boys, and he replied, home. I sent them home. Don't you understand? I sent them home.
What does that statement mean to you?
That he sent them to heaven.
Mark Pilbeam was then interviewed by the FBI. What did you learn from him?
Confirmed that they were friends, and we confirmed that that equidan@yahoo.com was John Skelton's email account.
So one of the emails that you discovered that was created from the same IP address, you confirmed was in fact John.
Yes.
That would have been his public email that he used with friends or whatever.
This is well known to be his email address that he used to contact Pilbeam.
Now further, did Pilbeam say anything about Skelton talking to him about not being able to have the kids?
Yeah, he recalled that John told them, if I can't have the kids, then she'll never have the kids either.
And do you understand that to mean she being Tanya Zubers?
Yes. And then he followed it up by saying that he would take the boys from Tanya as he did before when they traveled to Florida in September 2010.
And then was Sandra Ahrens interviewed?
She was interviewed, and we learned that she was John Skelton's aunt. Leading up, during the interview, she recalled that they had many conversations, and his interest in committing suicide. And then he also had very graphic comments about killing Tanya.
Back to the search of the residence. Could you go through the things that were found? You don't have to go into extreme detail, but what was found in the search of the home? A rose. I think there was a rose.
Yeah, there was. I recall a rose that was attached to the wall with a written statement. This was the rose that my first rose that Tanya had ever given me. That was, I think, affixed to the wall in some manner. I don't recall.
Was there also one about the last rose?
Yeah, in the last rose, there was also one, I think, that was affixed to the wall.
And this china cabinet that you described, what was inside it?
Nothing was, but it was already knocked over. All the contents were strewn about. And it looked like everything had been destroyed.
Were you aware that there was a large search party put together which lasted multiple days? Are you aware of that?
Yes.
And this consisted of fire departments and volunteers.
Yes.
Do you know what they searched?
Yeah, there were maps that were placed up in the command post. Those maps, and they just did a targeted area for places they would search, primarily based on the cell phone, the location, or if there's any actionable intelligence that we could work based on the interviews with John, such as Kunkel or other places that he said they would be. We had dispatched people out there, but there was a separate auxiliary of people that would search lakes, areas of land that were arranged by private citizens or private organizations. I believe, I think I can't remember the name of the official. Some police chief or fire chiefs also assisted in directing those land searches.
Were there also water searches?
There was also water searches as well, and that was via the City of Toledo Fire and Rescue. I think they had the most availability, and there were a number of locations of places that they had searched in the water.
So I know they'd searched a couple of lakes, but they'd also searched that Lazy River campground.
Yes.
Area, is that right?
Yes.
Including what was determined to be an unnamed lake, so a body of water that was on that campground.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
So I know you worked this case from November 26th, and I assume you've kept up with it as it's going on, is that correct?
That is.
So it's been almost 15 years since this happened. Is there any doubt in your mind what happened to those children?
I have no doubt in my mind that John Skelton killed Andrew, Tanner, and Alexander Skelton.
Is there any doubt in your mind that it happened on or about November 26, 2002?
No doubt in my mind.
I have no further questions at this time.
Questions? Yes.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You testified to being involved in the case almost immediately after that Amber Alert went out on, I believe it was November 26th of 2010. But can you tell us whether you are actively still involved in the investigation, or at what point did you stop being involved in the investigation?
I don't have the exact date, but there was a formal transition of case management and OIC responsibility to the Michigan State Police. I don't know the exact time, but Michigan State Police has been the primary responding agency.
Okay. And when you were still involved in the investigation, were there any calls from the public regarding any tips of the children being seen or anything like that?
Yes, there's a significant response. We had a database set up, Rapid Start, I think is what it was called, might have been called CMC, where all the intake would be received, typed and assigned and resolved. So Towards the latter part of the Bureau's investigation, we had an agreement with the state police that we would cover all matters outside the state of Michigan, just based on our resources and our reach, where in Michigan State Police would resolve any in-state tips.
Okay, so based on the tips then that the FBI would have been responsible for, so outside of the state of Michigan, were there any tips that came in that led to any significant searches with regards to those tips?
No significant searches outside the state of Michigan. I think primarily we were doing interviews, just running information down, but
Okay.
nothing significant.
Do you believe there were any credible tips that came in outside of the state of Michigan that you or the FBI were involved in?
I believe the callers believe them to be credible to their situation, but as it relates specifically to the Skelton matter, there has not been a solid investigative tip that leads us to a solid disposition in this case.
Okay. Based on just the media and things that, you know, pop up on the internet, it appears that there were allegedly some calls that came in Sandusky, Ohio, regarding a sighting of the boys with a lady. Do you recall that?
We've had a number of tips. I vaguely recall tips that came out of Sandusky.
Okay. And can you give examples of what types of things the FBI would do to actually look into those tips?
As it relates to Sandusky, if my memory is correct, I believe there's a lady that was seen with two or three children that resembled the Skelton kids at a cafe. Typically, we would resolve those by going to the cafe, the restaurant, to the venue, having contact with the manager, taking a look at any video, any other available information that we could via interview waitresses, managers, that sort of.
Okay. Are you aware of if Tanya Zubers was at any point considered a suspect in this matter?
I was never aware that she was, I'm not aware she was ever considered a suspect in this matter.
Okay. Are you aware of any other people other than John Skelton that have been considered a suspect or maybe still are considered a suspect?
Not in the investigative. In the tips, everybody says this guy did it, that guy did it, but those have never been founded. It's our position within the FBI that it's my opinion that he is the only subject in this matter.
Okay. You testified a little bit about John Skelton and the alleged suicide attempt that occurred on November 26th of 2010. And I believe when you were testifying to it, you were asked a question about it and you said reportedly. So can you, I guess, elaborate on that and whether you believe the suicide attempt was an actual attempt or maybe was it a cover-up, or what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on the suicide, there was no evidence indicative that he attempted to hang himself or stab himself. The only damage that he reported to have was damage to his ankle, which he went to the medical center. And I don't know if that's a result from falling off a ladder, burying anything, or falling off a banister. I don't know. There's no information for me to believe the source or how that occurred.
Okay. And you testified that he allegedly did this with a noose. What was that noose made out of?
The noose, I recall, is a thinner cord, light tan in color, maybe a half-inch thick. This is long. I remember seeing the picture, but it was more of a, it was just more of a cord.
Okay. Can you describe John Skelton's demeanor when you had contact with him personally around the time of November 26, 2010?
I had not had contact with him during that time. It was always our child abduction response team, special agents or troopers that would have that immediate response. I showed up. He was already in a medical facility, so I didn't have contact with him.
Okay. Were you made aware of anything by those people that did actually have contact with him regarding his demeanor that was significant or stood out?
Yeah, during the interviews, he was pretty emotional. And just like, as I noted before, when we brought up the idea that he thought he was, you expected that he was Joanne Taylor, he had that visceral response of the heart was beating very heavily, and he had very strong emotional response via crying and breathing. And that information was provided to us.
Okay. And based on that response, in your professional opinion, based on your trainings and your time with the FBI, is that a consistent reaction or I guess a typical reaction for somebody whose children allegedly are somewhere they don't know where they're at?
I think there's a myriad of emotional responses. If my kids are missing, I'm going to be very emotional. I'm going to have a very visceral response. So I don't think that made it any more special. His response to either allegations of him killing his kids or just not knowing where they're at. He is very emotional.
Okay. And I know you already testified to the mattress in John's bedroom from when the search was conducted around November 26th, but was there anything about the children's room that stood out to you or was of significance?
I just recall the mattresses were on the floor. One of the mattresses did not have a sheet. It wasn't orderly. There was a bunch of toys and stuff all over. I believe from the master bed, or the first floor, second floor, main bedroom where the bed was sliced up. The bedroom to the left had two mattresses on the floor. One was just a mattress without any sheets on top of it. It was just complete disarray.
Okay. And are you aware of, if the time that John was interviewed by the FBI, if John ever made any statements or gave any indication of why the house looked the way it did?
I don't specifically recall.
Okay. If you know, or if you can answer this, and based on your professional opinion and experience, do you have any ideas of why the house would have looked the way it did?
My experience or my training, I would imagine after such an event, that there's a lot of anger. And I do recall that John, when he cut up the keys, he wanted to make sure Tanny couldn't get anything back. Any of her private personal items in the house were destroyed, and there'd be no value to anything in the house that perhaps Tanny could take and use.
Was there anything that was visibly destroyed or damaged that belonged to the children within the home?
I don't recall.
You testified to the data showing that John's phone had been moving from Morenci to parts of Ohio and then back to Michigan in the early hours of November 26th. Do you believe that John was the person that was actually traveling with that phone at that point in time?
Yes.
Okay. And has there ever been any evidence that has been discovered that would suggest that anyone else was involved in whatever happened during the events on November 26, 2010, other than John Skelton?
No new evidence.
You testified about the dumpster that John alleged he put the boys in Kunkel, Ohio, and that there were searches there. Do you recall how extensive the searches were around that specific area?
Yeah, we had a good team that took off pretty quickly down there. I believe it was also supplemented with cadaver dogs, trying to pick up the potential cadaver odors or remnants thereof. And there was not a positive hit there. There was no indication of a body or things that cadaver dogs would locate.
Okay. Do you know if cadaver dogs were ever used to search the van?
I do not know.
Okay. Did you ever personally go to Holiday City, Ohio while those searches were ongoing?
No.
And you testified that it was both law enforcement as well as people from the public helping with those searches in Holiday City, Ohio, correct?
Not in Holiday City, Ohio. There was a group, I believe it was out of North Carolina, that were specifically trained in doing some grid searches in open fields and different sorts. That wasn't an immediate response to the incident. That was subsequent searches after things got controlled a little bit.
And you testified earlier to John making a statement that he was adamant that the boys had been in a dumpster and that they were not in any open fields. Did his comment regarding specifically them not being in open fields, did that stand out to you at all?
It did, and that just came from later on investigation in the steps. We utilized the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They're a national organization that helps us in many different sorts of crimes against children. And we learned kind of the profiling angle, or at least what, like when parents kill their children, the manners in which they would kill their children or where they dispose of the bodies. So it was, looking back now, typically parents aren't going to leave their children laying out in the middle of the woods. They're going to take other certain steps to try to protect them in their mindset. It's what I learned from Nick Mick and one of the profilers.
Okay. You testified about those internet searches that John Skelton had done on the computer prior to the boys last being seen, which involved searches with rat poisoning and whether it could kill. Was the home search to see if there was any rat poisoning within the home?
Yes, we looked for every possible cause or ability to kill.
Okay. And no rat poisoning was ever found?
No.
Was it looked into of whether John had purchased any anything significant that was, suspicious or, I guess, stood out around the time of November 2010?
Yeah, a financial investigation was conducted as well to try to track where he's been, gas, maybe bought wherever. It was noted the funds were depleted or at a negative balance, so there was no financial information that we obtained from a review of his finances leading up to the instant offense.
Did John Skelton ever give a reason for stating that he wrapped the boys in blankets while they were allegedly in their pajamas with those stuffed animals and putting them in the van?
He just provided the information that that's what he did. He didn't provide why.
I know that the three boys obviously were last seen in 2010, and we've had significant advances in technology since then, but were there any street cameras or anything like that that were available to be searched at that point in time?
The instant offense, I do recall that there's a gas station maybe at the main intersection of Morenci or in that southwesterly direction that we did research, and we did not find any information that would be of value.
Okay. You mentioned very graphic comments being made by John regarding killing Tanya. Can you give a bit more detail about that and whether it had any significance in the searches and how those were performed with the children?
No. The information came after everything calmed down in the searches. He was a tertiary interview of contacts, so we interviewed him later. I think it was Pillbeam or whoever. He provided here's some historical information about what we talked about. So we didn't have that information at the time that all the events were going on.
Okay. How long after you became involved in the investigation did you believe or determine in your mind that the children were deceased and were not missing?
Probably within the first 72 hours.
Okay. Do you know if that was the same opinion and about the same time frame as the other investigators from the FBI?
I don't know. I didn't ask. I don't know. I think my perspective was different. I was managing the case. So I was like a hub of information, kicking leads out and analyzing information and setting people out. So I had a lot better flow of information. They would almost come to me. Chief Weeks, one of the, we had a senior agent with me as well, and even some MSP detectives that were working with us. So I think our perspectives were probably different because many of our people were just assigned, go out here, do that, go out here, do that. So I don't know if their opinions, I didn't ask, and I don't know if they would have an opinion based on what their role was.
Okay. Are you aware if the children had passports at the time that they had last been seen?
I don't know if they had passports.
Okay. Do you think it's possible, based on all of the evidence that you're aware of, that these children are out there in a different country somewhere, or maybe in the United States somewhere, just not being found?
I think their bodies are someplace in this area. I don't think they're anywhere else but in this general area.
Okay. Is there anything else that you have not already testified to today with regards to the children being deceased that you wish to testify to or that you think is helpful?
No, I think you have been thorough.
Okay. I have nothing further. Thank you.
Did you say at one point, excuse me, that John and Tanya had a conversation that you reviewed on the night of the 26th?
I believe that was a text conversation about her asking to get the boys back. Or could have been that she wasn't responding to his calls while she was at Thanksgiving. And then it was later that night in which they had text or phone conversation where he was upset with her, and that I believe I'd look back, but you won't ever see me again, or something to that effect. And I don't know if that's telephonic, talking, or texting.
Thank you. All right, any redirect, Mr. Castleberry?
No, you're not.
Any other questions, Ms. Stang?
No, thank you.
Any reason we should not thank and excuse our
Please.
witness? Okay, thank you so much for your time and your testimony and your efforts in the case. Pass that along to Mr. Weeks, too.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, we're going to take a break for lunch. See you back here at 1:30 to resume our proceedings for the afternoon. All right, very good. Court's in recess.
All rise, please.